some behind the scenes. Yeah, so my name's Hassan. I graduated this year in 2021 with an ATAR of 99.35. I hope you find some useful advice here. Let's go. So since my last video, my ATAR reaction video, I've been getting a lot of requests for a general VC advice and as well as advice for each and every subject, especially English. So I thought I'd make a series of videos answering all your questions. So I had a lot of questions, a bunch of questions as you can see. So the first question, what is VCE? VCE is the Victorian Certificate of Education. So it's basically your high school degree here in Victoria, in Australia. Yeah. And who does this advice apply to? So this advice applies to current year 11s and 12s who are doing VCE. It's also transferable to anyone who's studying in a high school, any high school student who's seeking advice. Yeah, I'd say you'll find some useful tips here. My first piece of advice would be to always seek advice from others. So at the start of the year, I didn't really know what to expect because I'm new to year 12 as well. So I'd always make sure I asked my seniors to understand exactly what I'm getting myself into. Especially with the subjects, I asked and consulted a lot of people to understand and choose my subjects appropriately, which I'll go through a bit later. And the most requested question is, how many hours did you study every day and on weekends? Someone assumed I studied 4 hours on weekdays and 8 hours on weekends. So I really did not study that much. I think it would be insane to be able to study that much from January to December. But I'll show you exactly what I did. So I had this app on my phone. It was called Forest, and I recorded the amount of time I studied in total. So I started using this only, I think, in March. I started using it in March, or maybe even later. And I'll show you the amount of hours I studied. It's probably not as much as you expected. And trust me, the number of hours you study does not equal to your ATAR score. You have to be working smart, not hard. Yeah. So basically I would say I studied, so right before my exams I studied about like 40 hours a week. That's outside of school. But like before, like throughout the year I probably studied maybe like 25-30 hours a week. It's not much considering what everyone else was expecting me to study. So if I'd studied 4 times 5 is like 20, and then 16, that's like 36 hours. Studied in total 668 hours and 30 minutes. That was for the entire year. And if you look right before my exams, so I didn't have a set schedule, so my studying was super inconsistent, but also I did study quite a bit, so I wouldn't say it was inconsistent. I would say it was targeted towards like the amount of work I had to do, and made sure I did it as quickly as possible as well. So being productive and not wasting too much time, because if you finish your work quickly you have a lot of time to do anything else you'd like to do. Yeah, so looking back at my schedule, I studied, so some days right before my exam, before my English exam, I was studying like 10 hours a day, and I was able to hold 10 to 12 hours a day right before my exam because it was only for maybe a maximum of a week. But I wouldn't expect you to be studying that from the start of the year. That would be insane. So I would say I think I was doing maybe 2 to 3 hours on just normal weekdays throughout the year, and some days I didn't even study at all. If I had other things going on, I wouldn't study at all. So it really depends on you. So I didn't have a rigid schedule. I found that schedules didn't work for me. So what worked for me instead was having a to-do list. So I would write down everything I needed to get done, and then I would tick it off. I guess you get more dopamine that way, especially seeing a rigid schedule. Yeah, it just made me more stressed that I couldn't get things done on time, so I used a to-do list instead. And the second thing is, try to use your school time wisely. A lot of people waste their time in school, especially if you get your homework and stuff done in school. You don't have to do that at home. That's extra time for you, and extra time for you if you want to study or do whatever you want. and structure your studying time. So make sure you know exactly what you're going to study in that period. For example, I'm going to sit down for an hour and complete exercise 2B of my methods textbook. Make sure I do everything so I know exactly what I'm going to do, so it will help you stay more productive. And try not to get burnt out really early on in the year. That's a really bad thing. Don't get burnt out. Just take it easy at the start of the year. You probably feel a lot of motivation at the start of the year, but try to take it easy. Save that motivation for later in the year for your exams. And when I was studying, I used this POMODORO technique, studying for 50 minutes and 10 minutes rest. So as you can see, probably in my previous videos, I did like a few live streams. So you can have an example of how I studied. And the next question was, did you study 2 subjects a day? And if you did, how did you do that? Or did you study more than 2 subjects a day? So in year 12, I had 5 subjects in total. So during weekdays, like during school days, I usually just studied just 1 subject a day, because balancing and juggling like 2 or 3 subjects is pretty tough just on weekends, because I usually studied maybe like 2 to 3 hours on weekdays. But on the weekends, I definitely did at least 2 subjects. So that includes English, because English is your most important subject. Make sure you do it consistently throughout the year. Don't try to study for all your subjects in one day. That's not going to work. It's really unrealistic. Yeah, and by studying 1 subject on just one day, you can divert all your focus on just that 1 subject. Make sure you're preparing as best as you can. Yeah. The next thing I'd like to talk about is mindset. So I reckon, in my opinion, mindset is more important than anything else, literally. It's like the mindset you go into VCE, you'll hold it, and even for the rest of your life. So going into VCE, it's not all about it's still about your results, but you have to be consistent throughout the year. So there's no point in trying really hard during the start of the year and then absolutely bombing your exams at the end of the year, or vice versa, doing nothing, absolutely nothing throughout the year and then doing amazing on your exams. I mean, it would help much better the second way, but not as much as if you're consistent throughout the year as well. So using a growth mindset, like if you got a bad SAC score initially at the start of the year, being able to bounce back is really important. Being able to realize that you have lots more opportunities for getting better marks and improving your score. So always be open to improvement. Always accept other people's feedback, especially for English. You have to work with your teacher's feedback, and even try to get your friends to help you and ask for their opinion on stuff as well. And also part of the mindset is working on your weaknesses as well, not only your strengths. It's very easy to be comfortable with your strengths, but work with your weaknesses, try and improve those. But I'm kind of a hypocrite saying that, since I did physics and did absolutely nothing throughout the year, but I knew that was going to be my bottom subject. I'll talk about that later on, whether you should be considering what subjects should be your bottom from day 1 or not. The next thing was, did you work during year 12? If you could, would you have, and why? So yeah, disclaimer, I have Asian parents, so I did not work during the year 12 because they wouldn't let me. They're like focusing studying. But a lot of people did work, and I did hear they did really well. So this is kind of like one of my regrets of not working. See, I got an alarm. 6:20. I woke up before, just to catch the sunrise for you guys. Remember the real MVP on ATAR day. But yeah, as I was saying, did you work during year 12? No, I didn't, because my parents didn't allow me to work because they were more intent on me doing well in VCE than making money. But yeah, that was probably like one of my regrets, because I had a lot of spare time. Like, I filled it with watching movies and TV shows, which I could have spent time working and earning money. But I mean, considering I had time to relax, I had a lot of spare time throughout the year. So yeah, if another thing about working is that if you schedule your work, make sure you're busy all the time. You have no keep some time for relaxing as well, but make sure you don't have too much time such that you're going to be unproductive. So you can make yourself more productive by making sure you're busy all the time. Yeah, and working would help for that. So that's probably one of my regrets, but I'm fine with not working because I work a lot now. Tutoring Plug. And the next thing is habits over motivation. So make really small changes over time. For example, if you have never studied like 10 hours before, don't try study 10 hours at once. Try maybe start with half an hour a day. The next day maybe 45 minutes. Every day increase by a really small increment that you don't really feel the change. So another 15 minutes, probably you're not going to feel it. So over time you'll start building better habits, but if you make these incremental changes over time, it will be best. And don't rely on motivation, rely on your discipline. Motivation can come and leave. So at the start of the year you're going to feel really motivated because you're starting out these new VC subjects. You want to get as best as you can, but near the end of the year, especially the days before your exam, you're going to probably feel really down. I mean, I was personally probably like burnt out right before the exams. Don't do that. The worst thing you can do is just get burnt out right before your exams. The time when you're supposed to work most, right before your exams. Yeah, so rely on discipline, not motivation, to keep you going throughout the year. And that's probably all I would say for now. It's about 13 minutes long. I'll make another part 2 answering the rest of your questions. But yeah, my first piece of advice would be ask others for advice, especially now. It's December still. You have a lot of time in your holidays to get a head start over others, and yeah, use your time wisely. Bye. Ask me questions that you'd like me to answer in my YouTube videos, head over to my Instagram page, Asan_Imran. I'll put it in the description down below, and just send me a DM or something and ask me any questions. I'll be sure to answer in the next videos. Peace.